Hello friends, welcome to Tathagat GS PREP. In this video, we are going to discuss about Economic Survey 2022. And if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, please click on the subscribe button and press on the bell icon to never miss our updates. Also, we'll not waste much time, let's begin the video. This video is in English language. If you want the same video in Kannada language, we have provided the link in the description box below. You can go and watch the video. So, let's begin this video. Friends, before going to actual economic survey 2022, we should just see some of the basics regarding the economic survey. So, what is this economic survey? Economic survey is nothing but the annual document which is submitted by the Ministry of Finance every year for each financial year. Actually, under the Ministry of Finance, there is something called as Department of Economic Affairs. This Department of Economic Affairs presents the economic survey every year just one day before the union budget. And this economic survey is tabled in the parliament to both the houses. This economic survey is prepared under the guidance of Chief Economic Advisor of India. Friends, recently the government has changed the Chief Economic Advisor. Please comment in the comment section the name of the new Chief Economic Advisor of India. And the first economic survey of India was presented in the year 1950-51. But during that time, the budget was presented, the economic survey was presented along with the union budget. And this system changed in 1964. That is, in 1964, they separated the budget as well as the economic survey, and now the economic survey is presented just one day before the budget. And also, the economic survey is nothing but this is the finance ministry's view on the state of the economy of a country. So, let us look at some more details about the economic survey. This economic survey of India reviews about the developments in the economy over the past financial year. That is why they have provided here 2021-22. But the budget will be for the current year, that is 2022 to 2023. And also the economic survey summarizes the performance of major development programs of the government, that is the schemes, the policies, etc. And also it highlights the policy initiative of the government in each sector. And also, not only this, the economic survey also gives some prospects of the economy in the short and medium term. Friends, every year the economic survey has a theme, and this year the theme of the economic survey is agile approach. And also, each year generally the economic survey is provided in two volumes, that is volume 1 and volume 2. But this year they have removed this and they have only given one volume. And you can see the economic survey's image over here. They have given the Indian flag and the Indian map has been given, and in this Indian map there are various pictures which have been provided. Okay. So let us look at the next slide. So what is this agile approach? See, agile approach is nothing but it is a short-term policy response. Usually the economic survey, is a model, economic activities are modeled. Okay. These models have the long-term predictions. But when we see at the real-time basis, the economic parameters do not act according to this model. Hence, the agile approach says that we should not completely rely upon these economic models, but rather than that, we should just see the evolving situation and change the economic policies accordingly. And thus, this agile approach is based on the feedback loops, real-time monitoring, and actual outcomes, flexible responses, etc. And one more thing is, this agile approach do not have a planning. The planning is not done in the agile approach, but still the planning is relevant for some other economic activities. Friends, next let us see the state of the Indian economy. The state of the Indian economy, Indian Economic Survey 2021-22 says that the Indian economic GDP, that is gross domestic product, may grow by 9.2% in the real time in 2021-22. as per the first advanced estimate. But in 2020-21, the GDP has been contracted by nearly 7.3%, that is minus 7.3%. and the GDP is projected to grow by 8 to 8.5% in 2022 and 23. Friends, you can just see the previous year's GDP growth, that is, in 2017-18, the GDP growth was nearly 7%. In 18-19, it was 6.1%. In 1920, it came down to 4.2%. And later, during the COVID lockdown, it went to nearly minus 7.7%. And in the last economic survey, they predicted that in the year 2021-22, the GDP may grow by 11%, but it has actually grown by 9.2%. Okay, so let us go to the next slide. So the next slide also speaks about the state of the economy. Here, on the demand side, they say that the consumption will also start to grow by 7%, and the gross fixed capital formation. The gross fixed capital formation is nothing but the investment. Okay, it is nothing but the investment. It will grow by 15%. And also they say that the exports are going to be increased by 16.5% and imports will increase by 29.4% in 2021-22. It has been done already. Okay, so as per the IMF's latest World Economic Outlook projection, Indian real GDP is projected to grow at nearly 9%. Nearly, it is 9%. Friends, agriculture and allied sector are expected to grow by 3.9%, industry by 11.8%, and service sector by 8.2% in 2021-22. But we have to observe one thing here, that during the 2020 to 21, that is during the COVID lockdown period, it was only agriculture sector which showed the positive growth, and both industrial sector as well as the service sector showed the negative growth. Fine. So let us go to the next slide. The next slide talks about the fiscal development. It talks about the fiscal development. Here, the revenue receipts, the government says that the revenue receipts from central government have gone up by nearly 67.2%. But they expected that the growth may be nearly just 10%, but it has been grown by 67.2%. That is a very good sign for the Indian economy. And next, the gross tax revenue registers a growth of nearly 50% during April to November 2021. Friends, usually when we look at the income side of the budget, income side of the economy, there are majorly it is divided into two heads, that is revenue receipts and the capital receipts. Revenue receipts and the capital receipts. So what are these revenue receipts? The main difference between revenue receipt and capital receipt is that the revenue receipts are regular in nature, that is every year it is being generated, but the capital receipts are non-recurring in nature. And also this revenue receipts do not create any resource, it do not reduce the liability of the economy, but this capital receipt reduces the liability of the economy. Fine. Usually you please comment in comment section in the last budget from the revenue receipts, from which taxation did the government get the highest income from. Okay, and also they say that during April to November 2021, the capital expenditure has grown by nearly 13.5%. Friends, it has been grown by 13.5%, with focus on infrastructure intensive sectors. Friends, actually, when we compare with the capital expenditure as well as the revenue expenditure, the capital expenditure has to grow, not the revenue expenditure. If the capital expenditure grow, in the long term, it is going to help for the economic growth of that country. Next, the sustained revenue collection and targeted expenditure policy has contained the fiscal deficit at 46.2% of the budgeted year. Usually, according to the FRBM Act, that is Fiscal Responsibility and Budgetary Management Act, the target year was 2021, and by 2021 the fiscal deficit would have been decreased by nearly 3.5% of the GDP. But this target has not been reached because of the COVID-19 pandemic, friends. And also in the FRBM Act, they said that by the year 2024-25, the central government debt should be nearly 40%. It should be reduced to 40% of the GDP. But here we can see that during the COVID-19, the central government debt has gone up by 49.1% of the GDP in 2019-20, and it is nearly 59.3% of the GDP in 2020-21. Friends, let us look at the next slide. That is, next slide talks about the external sector. Fine. So, what is this external sector? See, external sector talks about the income and imports and exports of the country, and also it talks about the foreign exchange reserves, etc. Fine. So, this external sector, when we look at the external sector, Indian merchandise exports, that is goods exports and imports, rebounded strongly after the COVID levels. Okay, after the COVID has been reduced. There was significant pickup in the net services, which with both receipts and payments crossing the pre-pandemic levels. See, usually all these merchandise export as well as the service export have been significant. They have shown some significant pickup after the COVID-19. When India's external debt rose to nearly 593.1 billion at the end September 2021. Before it was nearly 556.8 billion. Friends, we should know that the Indian debt, when we consider Indian debt, the internal debt of India is greater than the external debt. And external debt, when we compare to the internal debt, is very less for India. That is why we don't have any risk which is related to the external debts. Fine. Then, not only that, the foreign exchange reserves of India crossed nearly $600 billion. This is a very good sign that our forex reserve has crossed nearly 600 billion. But in the last year, they had estimated that this foreign exchange reserve would come somewhere around 550 billion or so, but it has crossed nearly 600 billion. Okay, so let us look at the next slide. Next slide says that as of end of November 2021, India was the largest foreign exchange reserve holder. It was the fourth largest. It is the fourth largest foreign exchange reserve holder after China, Japan, and Switzerland. So, first largest foreign exchange reserve holder in the whole world is China, friends. Okay, so let us see that the foreign exchange reserve of India, how they have changed over the years. You can see in this diagram that in the year 2017-18, our foreign exchange reserve was nearly 424. Then it decreased to 411.9 in 2018-19. Then again it increased in 2021, 2020 and 2021. It was estimated that it will come nearly 586.1 billion, but it has crossed 600 billion. So if the question says that in the last 4 to 5 years the foreign exchange reserve has continuously increased, then that statement will be the wrong statement, because we see that after 2017-18 there was a slight decrease in the foreign exchange reserve. Friends, let us look at the next slide. The next slide talk about the monetary management and financial intermediation. Here, the liquidity in the system has remained in the surplus. Means that is, there is more money flow in the economy. There is more money flow. After that, the repo rate was maintained at -% in 2021-22. It was nearly 4%. It was nearly 4%. So what is this repo rate? Repo rate is nothing but the rate at which the RBI provides short-term loans to the scheduled commercial bank, friends. And one thing I would like to tell you is, it may be repo rate, it may be reverse repo rate, or it may be cash reserve ratio, or it may be statutory liquidity ratio. If there is inflation in the economy, all these rates are going to be increased. If there is deflation in the economy, all these rates are going to be decreased. That you have to keep in the mind. Next, RBI undertook various measures such as government security acquisition program and also special long-term repo operations, etc. When the RBI takes government security acquisition program or a special long-term repo operation, it pumps the money into the economy and thus it provides the further liquidity, friends. And also when we see it year-on-year bank credit growth, this bank credit growth has been accelerated gradually in 2021-22 from 5.3% in 2021 to 9.2% in 2020-21 December. Friends, this credit growth in the banking sector shows that the economy is on the right track and that it is improving day by day. And also the last point is that the gross non-performing advances ratio of scheduled commercial bank has declined. This is a very good sign. That is, Indian banking sector is facing one of the biggest problems, that is the non-performing asset. So what is the meaning of this non-performing asset? Non-performing asset means whenever a bank gives loan bank gives loan to an individual or a company, if that loan or the interest is not returned for more than 3 months, then we call it as a non-performing assets. And if it is for the less than 3 months, then we usually mention it in the special mention account, friends. Okay. So this non-performing assets have been decreased. Let us look at the next slide. Next slide talks about prices and inflation. Prices and inflation. So they say that the average headline CPI combined inflation has been moderated to nearly 5.2% in 2021-22 from 6.6% in the 2020-21. Friends, usually we should know that Indian government and the RBI, they target the inflation on this CPI combined. We target our inflation on the CPI combined, and our inflation is usually targeted for 4 plus or minus 2%, friends. 4 plus or minus 2%. It should not go below 2%. It should not go above 6%. And also, we can see that the retail inflation has been declined. The reason for the decline in the retail inflation is that the food inflation in the recent past have been decreased to 2.9%. When we compare it with the last year, it was nearly 9.1%. As the food inflation has been decreased, thus the total retail inflation has also been decreased. But on the other hand, we can see that there is a reduction in the central excise and also subsequent cuts in the VAT by more states, which has helped to ease the increase in the petrol and the diesel prices. But when we look at the wholesale price index, the wholesale price index has been increasing. That is, it has rose to nearly 12.5%. See, the CPI command has moderated to nearly 5.2%, but the wholesale price index has been increased to 12.5%. Why this wholesale price index has been increased? See, friends, there is actually, when we look at both CPI as well as the WPI, we can see that these CPI is based on a different number of items, and the WPI is based on the different number of items. And also, the items which are calculated in the CPI are not taken into consideration when we calculate the WPI. And not only this, the weightage given to the different goods and services is different in CPI as well as the wholesale price index. That is why there has been this difference, friends. Okay, let us look at the next slide. So the next slide says that why there is the divergence between the CPI, C value and WPI inflation. That is what right now I said, that there are different set of criteria when we calculate the CPI and WPI. That is why there is this difference. And the government is of the opinion that this CPI combined WPI inflation will also come down in the future. Friends, here we have to see the difference between the CPI and WPI. Friends, as I told that the Indian government targets the inflation based on the CPI combined, and both CPI as well as WPI has the base year of 2011-12, friends, 2011-12, and the CPI data is given by National Statistical Office, and WPI data every month is given by Office of Economic Advisor, which comes under the Ministry of Commerce. And also, we should note that the CPI covers both goods as well as the services, wherein the WPI covers only goods, friends, only goods. Fine. So let us look at the next slide. Next slide talk about the sustainable development and the climate change. So India's overall score on the Niti Aayog SDG India Index and Dashboard has been improved to nearly 66%. That means India is very close to achieve these sustainable development goal targets. That's why our ranking has been improved. Okay, and India has the 10th largest forest area in the whole world, and in 2022, India ranked the third globally in increasing its forest area during 2010 to 2020. In August 2021, the Plastic Waste Management Amendment Rules 2021 was notified, which is aimed to phasing out single-use plastic by the year 2022, my dear friends. We have planned to phase out the single-use plastic by 2022. Next, the Prime Minister, as a part of the national statement delivered at 26th Conference of Parties. This 26th Conference of Parties was conducted in the place called as Glasgow. Okay, he announced the ambitious target to achieve by 2030 to enable further reduction in the emissions. My dear friends, in the Paris climate deal, what we have done is each and every country have given their nationally determined contributions. Nationally determined contribution. India has also given the nationally determined contribution, and we have agreed that by the year 2030, what we are going to do is we are going to reduce our emission intensity by 30 to 35% of the GDP. 30 to 35% of the GDP by 2005 levels. Not only this, we have also said that out of our total energy production, nearly 40% of the energy production will be done by the renewable energy. And also, among this renewable energy, highest energy production will come from the solar energy, friends. Okay. So, and also in the COP26, what the Prime Minister has said that the Prime Minister said that there is one urgent need for the whole world to start. That is, the whole world should start one movement called as LIFE. This LIFE stands for Lifestyle for Environment. This Lifestyle for Environment says that we have to adopt our lifestyle according to the changing environment, friends. This concept was given by Mahatma Gandhiji, and it reflects the culture of the India. That is why India is more focusing on the life initiative, and it has told the whole world that the whole world needs to adopt this life, that is lifestyle for environment. Let us look at the next slide. So, next slide talks about the different sectors of the economy. The economy is usually divided into primary, secondary, and tertiary sector. This primary, secondary, and tertiary sector means that primary is nothing but agriculture and allied sector, secondary means manufacturing and industries, tertiary sector is service sector. Friends, we should know which all sectors comes under primary, secondary, and tertiary. Usually agriculture, dairy, fishery, forestry, etc. And also one important, that is mining sector. That is the mining sector comes under the primary sector. Usually we'll get confused that it comes under secondary, but no, it comes under the primary. And in the secondary sector, manufacturing, industry, construction, etc. comes under the secondary sector. And in the tertiary sector, transportation, real estate, finance, etc. comes under the tertiary sector. So let us see how these three sectors are performing. So first, let us look at the agriculture. In agriculture sector, they say that the agriculture sector has experienced the growth in the past 2 years, accounting for sizable of nearly 18.8% of the total GDP. Okay, total gross value added for the GDP of the country. And this sector has registered the growth of nearly 3.6% in 2020-21 and 3.9% in 2021-22. Friends, as I already told that during 2020-21, agriculture sector was the only sector which showed the positive growth. But other two sectors did not show any growth. Next, the minimum support price policy is being used to promote the crop diversification here. We should note that the minimum support price is announced for nearly 22 crops plus one crop, that is sugarcane. For sugarcane, they do FRP, that is fair and remunerative price, and not the minimum support price. And out of these 22 crops, there are nearly 4 commercial crops, friends. And please try to remember all these 22 crops because they might ask this in the exam. Not only this, when we look at the MSP, there is something called as a CACP, Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices. So this recommends the MSP, but the final MSP is fixed by the government, that is cabinet, not the CACP. CACP only gives the recommendations. But we should also know that the minimum support price do not have any statutory backing. Fine. Next, when we consider the agriculture sector, here the allied sector, that is animal husbandry, dairying, fisheries, etc., are the major drivers of the economy, and they contribute a lot to the agriculture sector. And the government has further extended the coverage for food security network under the schemes such as PM Garib Kalyan Yojana. Usually, this PM Garib Kalyan Yojana has helped the migrant workers, the poor families, the Antyodaya families during the COVID-19, and they are also reduced the price of the food grains and increased the quantity of the food grains in the PM Garib Kalyan Yojana. And not only this, government in the recent past has been focusing more on the food processing. That is why the government has taken so many measures in this regard. Here we can see that in this picture that the government has taken the measures such as mega food parks. The government has also started Operation Green. Operation Green is nothing but to control the price of the top, that is tomato, onion, potato, etc. Fine. But it was in the beginning they gave only importance for these top. Now they are covering all the vegetables, that is from top to total. Right. Next, they have also started some infrastructure projects in the agriculture sector, that is the integrated cold chain and the value addition infrastructure, Kisan rail projects, etc. have also been started. Fine. So let us look at the next slide. Fine. So the next slide talk about industry and infrastructure. Industry and infrastructure, the IIP, that is Index of Industrial Production, has grown by nearly 17.4% during April to November 2021 as compared to minus 15.3% in 2020 in the same period. Friends, Index of Industrial Production is given by National Statistical Office NSO, and this talks about the industrial sector, how the industrial sector is faring in the economy. And in this Index of Industrial Production, manufacturing is given the highest weightage. The highest weightage is given for the manufacturing sector, and also there is something called as core industries. There are nearly 8 core industries, whose weightage constitutes nearly 40% of this Index of Industrial Production. Friends, please comment in the comment section which are these core industries, and for which core industry there is highest weightage and for which core industry there is lowest weightage. And next thing is the capital expenditure for Indian Railways has been increased in the recent past, and also the extent of the road construction per day has increased substantially in 2021 to 36.5 kilometers per day from 28 kilometers per day. All these data tells us one thing, that the economy of the India is coming back to the track after the slowdown during the COVID. And also the major scheme, the most important scheme, that is the production linked incentive scheme. Production linked incentive scheme has been started in various sectors by the government. Here what they do is, if the companies increase their production, then the government is going to give some of the incentives for those sectors. Fine. This will help to increase the production as well as the export from the Indian economy. So let us look at the next slide. The next slide talks about the services sector. Here the gross value added of the service sector has crossed the pre-pandemic level, and now the gross value added of the contact intensive sectors like trade, transport, etc. is still below the pre-pandemic level. The overall service sector gross value added is expected to grow by 8.2% in 2021-22. During the first half of the 2021-22, service sector received nearly 16.7 billion foreign direct investment, accounting for nearly 54% of the total foreign direct investment inflows into the India. Service export have surpassed the pre-pandemic level, and it has been grown by nearly 21.6% in the first half of 2021-22. And this is because it has also strengthened by the demand for the software and the IT services. We know that IT services and software are the major export oriented service sectors. And friends, what in the software and IT services, what is being consumed in the domestic is lesser than what we export. That is, the exports are more than the domestic consumption in this IT and software services. And the important IT hub of India is Karnataka, that is Bangalore. Okay, let us look at the next slide. The next slide talks about the social infrastructure and employment. Friends, this COVID-19 vaccine, when you look at the COVID-19 vaccination, nearly there has been 157.94 crore doses of COVID-19 vaccine have been administered, and nearly 91 crore people has taken first dose, and nearly 66 crore people has taken both first and second dose. When we look at the periodic labor force survey, this periodic labor force survey is given every year, and it talks about the employment and unemployment data in the country. And this periodic labor force survey says that the employment in urban sector affected by the pandemic has recovered almost to the pre-pandemic level. And also, according to the Employment Provident Fund Organization, the formalization of the jobs continued during the second COVID wave. Adverse impact of COVID on formalization of the job is much lower, they say. But friends, when we look at the Indian economy, most of the jobs are being provided by the informal sector and not the formal sector. Okay, this we should remember. And last, the expenditure on the social services such as health, education, other sectors by the center as a proportion of the GDP has increased from 6.2% in 2014-15 to nearly 8.6% in 2021-22. Next, we should look at the next slide, that is this is also related to social infrastructure and employment. And this slide says that as per National Family Health Survey, recent National Family Health Survey, the total fertility rate in India came down to 2% in 2002 in 2019 to 2021 from 2.2 in 2015-16. Friends, here when we look at the total fertility rate, we call something as a replacement rate. Replacement rate, the number is 2.1. When the total fertility rate reaches 2.1, that means that whatever is the population of the country, that does not change and it keeps on replacing the same population. But it has now, when we look at the total fertility rate in India, it has went below the replacement rate. Next, the infant mortality rate, under 5 mortality rate and institutional birth have improved in 2019 to 21 over the when we compare to 2015 and 16. Next thing is, under Jal Jeevan Mission, nearly 83 districts have become Har Ghar Jal districts. And this Jal Jeevan Mission is about providing the tapped water connection to every rural household. Tapped water connection by the year 2024, friends. But one interesting thing is, the government says that it has been already achieved too much in this Jal Jeevan Mission, and it has set this target. It has preceded this preceded the targets, and now the target year they have kept it for 2022. Fine. Next, the increased allotment of funds to MG Narega, that is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, has been done. That is, they have increased the allotment to these sectors. Friends, this is all from this economic survey. In this economic survey, we have tried to briefly talk about all the economic factors. And if you want the detailed economic survey videos, please comment in the comment section. We will make the detailed economic survey videos in the upcoming days. Fine. So, thanks for watching the video, and please make sure that you like the video, you share the video, and also subscribe to our channel. Thank you, friends.